Alright, so this is video about a lot of different things, but mostly it's a video about how to stop this from happening. So, let me do this. So, you're drawing in Photoshop, got a nice hard brush. Oh, by the way, I've got the most recent version of Photoshop, but don't worry if yours doesn't look like this, because the stuff I'll talk about works in pretty much any version. I've been using it since like Photoshop 3, so and I know these things are in pretty much all of them, so don't worry about that. So anyway, you're drawing with this. You got nine, yeah. That line looks nice and smooth. I don't know what the hell I made, but whatever. Um, but then you go to fill it in with this hideous color here, and that happens. And you got all this ugly white crap around the edges. Basically, what's going on is that the brush tool makes makes the edges of the line very smooth because it blends the color of the brush with the color of the background. So all around the edges there's a mixture of your color and white, from very, very light to pretty much one or the other. And the fill tool is basically, it only understands the boundaries of color. Let's see if I can explain that right. It's it will only fill a color up until it meets another color. So what happens is it's meeting like this. It might look like white, but it's actually really, really, really light lavender, and then it sort of becomes a gradient, purple gradient. So it's only filling in the white, and it's ignoring all this other crap around the edges. And so we want to get rid of this. And there's a few different things you can do. Easiest way, I'm going to start with the things that only involve Photoshop, because that's bound to be the easiest thing to do. So anyway, let me, clear this. Dang it. So anyway, when you're starting a new image, here's what I would do. If you're drawing purely in Photoshop, here's how I'd do it. So you've got white as your background. Now start a new layer. Don't fill that with anything. Now you're free to draw black lines however you want. And it's not actually mixing them with the white this time, because it's really a transparent layer. So what you can do is use this tool, the lasso tool, and on your other layer, I should have made that more easily definable image. Let's make that a ball. So one thing you can do, you've got this nice shape you want to fill in. You can either draw it again with the lasso tool. Whoops, let me actually try to draw. I don't have a tablet or anything, so these look kind of crappy. So, you get the idea. And then I would put in another layer, and this is going to be like a layer of just colors. And fill in your color there, and voila, no white crap. Another thing you can do, if you've got a really complicated shape that's fairly closed off and you don't want to try redrawing it, is so let's hide that. So here's a magic wand tool, and up until a point this is going to have the exact same problem that the fill tool has, and that it's only grabbing the white. Even if you mess with the tolerance, you're never going to get all these little jagged things. So I got a better trick. go to Select, Modify, and Expand. Now this will depend on how thick and thin your lines are, but so you've got your expansion, and it's like basically a few pixels short around every edge. So just expand it by 3 pixels, and it has traversed the blurry boundary of the line. So now you're also free to fill in the color on your background now. So same effect, it just depends on how complicated your line art is. This will also, well, so that's if you're drawing in Photoshop from scratch. If you have got an existing image, like a JPEG or something that's like flat black and white, art you scanned in and cleaned up or something, let me see if I can find a good image that we can use. Let me see. I didn't plan out this video at all, so I apologize for any boring parts. One moment. I'm gonna pause it. Alright, so we're back. I found this image on the internet of something my tax dollars surely funded. So anyway, you've already got this black and white image. It's kind of cruddy, kind of compressed, whatever. You saved it somewhere else, or you found it online, or whatever you want to do with it. Now, instead of doing this, make sure this is... there we go. Just doing that. Yeah, see, that's not going to work. So, first, let's try to clean this up a little. Go to Adjustments, Levels. This is kind of a complicated tool to use, even I don't understand it completely, but basically, by moving the slider in the middle, you are going to adjust the black and white levels of your picture. And you can make your blacks blacker, and that'll happen. You can make your whites whiter. And usually this is what you're going to want to do to clean up some of that compression noise. So, let's see. That looks pretty good. So you've got nice clean art, but you know, even that, you still got white crap. So what we do, if it's currently the background, go to Duplicate, make a new layer, get rid of the old background, do whatever you want with it, doesn't matter. So we got 2 new layers, and one we want to make, let's say, white, just to mimic the background. And then you've got this blank layer. This is going to be where your colors go. So, first thing you want to do is take your old line art. Let's be good Photoshop artists and name our layers. Oops. Dang it. Sheesh. Oh. This is embarrassing. Alright. So I got your line art, got your color layer. Go to the line art layer and make its mode multiply. Won't look like it did a damn thing until we do this. Make it purple again, because why not? Whoa, trippy as hell. So using this technique, we can use some of the techniques we used earlier, where we either just grab chunks of the line art layer with the magic wand brush, and if they got jaggies around the edge, we can modify expand them. Line art's pretty thin here, so we're only going to expand it by 2 pixels. That might even be too much in some case, but it's a lot easier to go back and edit out any of the color that escapes its line than try to redraw all the colors by hand. So we select it on the line art layer, fill it in on the color layer. Nice, clean, good looking. So you can even do this with fairly compressed art. I mean, this was just something I found on the internet. It's like 400 pixels wide. It's not that big, not nice and high resolution. But that still looks pretty good, I think. So that's one way to do line art. Now, the other way, which is the way that professional comic book colorists do it, is to start another program entirely, which is one that the person I was talking to on Tumblr was using, which is this one, Illustrator. Illustrator is a fundamentally different program from Photoshop, which I started to explain in my thing on Tumblr. Basically, there are two kinds of image programs for dealing with 2D images. All freaking kinds for dealing with 3D images, but we're not getting into that. Illustrator is what's known as a vector-based editor. Photoshop is a raster-based editor. Other raster-based editors would be like Microsoft Paint, Sci, Art Attack, most of the ones you're probably familiar with. And you notice that when you zoom in on these, you can see all the pixels. And basically, a raster image is just a finite collection of pixels arranged in a particular way. I know that sounds like every image editor, but what I mean is that it is a square box full of colored dots that are arranged in a way to look like an image. Full of pixels. Raster art is very different. Raster art is Illustrator, Flash, it's some old programs like Corel Draw. I don't know if anyone even uses Corel Draw anymore. There's a open source vector program called InkSpot, I think. I can't remember what it's named. But these programs are generally harder to use, well, at least. And even Photoshop nowadays has some vector-like editing capabilities in it. But Illustrator is a real deal. And Illustrator, so let's just try drawing something. Big fat line, let's make a smiley face. You notice how all these little lines in here. See, I am not that familiar with Illustrator, so. But you see, once you've got an image, once you've got a line down in Illustrator, you can change it in ways you cannot change your raster-based image program. You can resize stuff and wiggle a line around, and all kinds of crazy things that just you can't do in raster, because vector-based images are not pixel-based. They are made of math. So basically, instead of saying I've got this 500 by 500 pixel square with all these pixels in it arranged in this order, it's saying I have a mathematical formula for a line that looks like this, and I want it to always look like this, no matter what size it is, what color it is, whatever, until that formula is changed, which we can do on the fly. But anyway, that's how to draw in Illustrator, which I guess if you might already know how to do that to an extent. So that is why when you copy stuff straight from Illustrator into Photoshop, stuff goes crazy. It just doesn't look right. It is trying its best to translate from one to the other, but it's really hard. So anyway, let me actually try to draw something real quick. Dang, do I even remember how to delete stuff? Alright, so what should I draw? Let me just draw a cat. I can draw better than this, I swear. I just choose not to. So anyway, there's a crappy little kitty. Then we save this as a AI file. This is a special format that only Illustrator and other Adobe products understand. So, I don't know. That works. I don't know what you do for this. I mean, it's going to look a little different depending on what version you have. So anyway, done with Illustrator. Go to Photoshop, and we want to import. No, actually, we want to just open. So we go to libraries. Here's our cat. Alright. So here's a screen that'll come up when you try to import a vector-based image. Over here, you can say what size you want it to import at, because remember, vector-based images do not have an actual size. They can be any size. So go to pixels. So that seems pretty big. That should look good. And let's do... And here's another thing. If we do anti-aliased, these lines are going to come in very smooth and integrated into the background like the way a regular Photoshop brush is. Which, if we're importing it in a small layer, that's great. We can use the same method I used for this image I found. But if you want to use a fill tool the way it was intended, let's try this. Now this is a pretty big image. So now what we have is a aliased image, which basically means these are very stark pixels. They are one-to-one with the background. There is no blending, no blurry, no nothing in here to make those white jaggy things. So now we can finally just use the freaking fill tool like a coloring book. Ta-da! I don't know, pretend that's some kind of Neopet or something. I don't know Neopets. Right, so there's a crappy cat. Like I said, you can either do it that way, and then when you shrink it, so let's make this like 200. It all looks nice and smooth. More or less. You might have to mess with your settings a little, but so that's pretty much it. by and large, I think it's easiest just to stay within Photoshop. Draw there, use the line techniques I've showed you here. Let me know if you got any questions. Hopefully this has helped. First time doing a video tutorial, so I apologize if it sucked.